What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, Paulie the Magic Man Malignaggi, two-time welterweight world champion, two-division world champion, should I say. Paulie the Magic Man Malignaggi chimes in on the highly anticipated heavyweight rematch between now current Mexican unified heavyweight champion Andy Ruiz Jr. and former unified heavyweight world champion Anthony Joshua, as they head over to Saudi Arabia to kick off the press conference and the press tour leading into the rematch that's highly anticipated, and the boxing world can't wait. There's so many storylines leading into this fight. It's not even funny. But everybody wants to see, everybody's anxious to see if it was all a fluke the first go round, June 1st, Madison Square Garden, New York City, as Andy Ruiz upset and defeated Anthony Joshua in dramatic fashion, dropping him 4 times, ultimately stopping him in the 7th round, right? And the boxing world wants to know if that was a fluke, right? Anthony Joshua was undefeated. He had a lot of momentum. He was quote unquote the face of boxing. He definitely, people felt like he was the face of the heavyweight division. I wasn't one. I'm one for Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder, undefeated WBC American heavyweight champion. I think he's the best heavyweight in the world. I thought he was the best heavyweight before Andy Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua, and I still think that to this day. No point intended, right? To this day, So, with that said, this fight will be taking place December 7th, Saudi Arabia, and there's a lot of things, a lot of controversy surrounding this fight. There's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of impatience. And everybody has an opinion, when it comes to this fight. Especially seeing the fight is going to take place in Saudi Arabia. There's a lot of questions. People questioning, are women allowed to come to the boxing match over in Saudi Arabia, right? You can't drink at the event in Saudi Arabia, right? So there's so many, there hasn't even been a venue built yet for this event, right? They're claiming that they're going to build an arena that's going to hold between 12 and 15,000 people. So there's so much excitement at the end of the day. It all boils down to excitement. The anxiety, the questions, the opinions, all of that boils in, wrapped up in one. And it's excitement because everybody wants to see how this fight is going to play out. And it could have a lot of implications on the heavyweight boxing division, right? Why? Because if Andy Ruiz wins again, it's much easier for Deontay Wilder, who's the WBC heavyweight champion, to unify and become undisputed because they're under the same umbrella. They're both under PBC and Al Heyman, right? So it's easy for that fight to be made. Then on the flip side of that, if Anthony Joshua was to win, everybody gets the fight they originally want to see anyway, right? Can that fight be made? That was the highly anticipated showdown was between Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. So can Anthony Joshua revive his career, revive his standings, get himself back on track, and we get that mega heavyweight showdown everybody anticipated from the get-go, and that's Wilder versus Joshua, right? So now we got Tyson Fury will be fighting next weekend, September 14th in Las Vegas against Otto Wallen. Nobody knows who Otto Wallen is. No disrespect to Otto Wallen. So the boxing world's not too excited about that. Actually, there's no buzz around that fight, right? Okay, now leading into Paulie Malignaggi. Paulie Malignaggi breaks down the fight, and usually Paulie Malignaggi has a great assessment of the sport of boxing. He has a high ring IQ. When he was fighting, he's a 2-division world champion. So Paulie Malignaggi knows the sport of boxing. Now, some people fell out of favor in his opinion lately, as of late, as he seemed to be very critical and one-sided. But, hey, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, right? So with that said, Paulie Malignaggi says that he believes It doesn't matter what Anthony Joshua does. Because, why? Because we haven't seen the best Andy Ruiz Jr. He says Andy Ruiz was very basic, very bland. He didn't have to put much effort and thought into his approach because he was a counterpuncher. He just did what he did naturally. He didn't have to do anything fancy. You know, basically what Paulie Malignaggi is saying that he didn't have to dig deep, pretty much. He didn't have to go into his bag of tricks. He was very vanilla in his approach, and that worked for him in defeating Anthony Joshua, right? So he says that we're definitely going to see a better version of Anthony Joshua because, you know, he believed that Anthony Joshua was psychologically and mentally not there, right? His mind was elsewhere. It's hard to get motivated for these type of fights, what Paulie Malignaggi is saying. You know, when you have Andy Ruiz and you overlook the fighters. You're not supposed to. Everybody says the right thing going into the fights is, I'm not overlooking no opponent, but it happens because these guys are only human. And so with that said, Paulie Malignaggi says he's at the belief, at the mindset that he believes that Anthony Joshua did overlook Andy Ruiz, but still, styles make fights. And so what he's saying is we're going to see a better version of Anthony Joshua. But the problem with that is for Anthony Joshua is he's only going to elevate Andy Ruiz because now we're going to see a better version of Andy Ruiz. So every time Joshua steps it up, Andy Ruiz is going to step it up. So in a nutshell, what Paulie Malignaggi is saying that is Anthony Joshua could possibly be in trouble because styles make fights, and he believes that Andy Ruiz is one up on Anthony Joshua. So he's leveled up on Anthony Joshua, right? So what happens is when Anthony Joshua levels up, he's pushing Andy Ruiz up, right? Ironically enough, right? He's elevating Andy Ruiz because the best version of Anthony Joshua is just going to fuel Andy Ruiz to be an even better version of what we already saw. So in that aspect, Paulie Malignaggi is pretty much telling the world that he believes Andy Ruiz Jr. is going to win this fight. He says that, you know, obviously, you know, it's the heavyweight division. Everybody has a chance when you're over 200 pounds, and especially when you're talking about two of the best heavyweights that ever did it. You know, but he said that, you know, he believes that Anthony Joshua is a mentally tough individual. He said that he believed he showed that in the Klitschko fight. And so, you know, he said he showed that, you know, he had a heart, you know, he could dig deep, he could get up off the canvas and still be victorious. He showed that in the Klitschko fight. Now I'm going to be critical of that. Why? Because Klitschko didn't have what it takes to continue, you know, to pull a trigger. You know, he was too old. You know, he was past his prime. No excuses. Anthony Joshua did what he did. You know, but Vladimir Klitschko in that fight wasn't able, you know, to close the show. Andy Ruiz was able. Vladimir Klitschko had an opportunity to close the show. He wasn't physically able to close the show. And so that too, so it's an asterisk by it because he allowed Anthony Joshua to get himself back in the fight and ultimately finish him, right? Andy Ruiz was younger and didn't allow it. He didn't allow Anthony Joshua to catch a second win. He didn't allow Anthony Joshua to get back, you know, his confidence, right? He continued to break him. So I have to disagree with Paulie Malignaggi when he says that he showed it in the Klitschko fight. Because in the same token, you got to say he showed it in the Andy Ruiz fight. Because he got up 4 times. Even the last time when a referee ultimately waved it off, he still was back up on his feet, right? So he still showed the heart to get back up. He ain't just lay down and call it quits, right? He got back up. So, you know, he does have the heart, you know, but does he have the skill set to compete with Andy Ruiz when he gets in trouble? That's the question, right? Because Andy Ruiz is hungry, he's younger, and he wants it. Vladimir Klitschko gave Anthony Joshua the opportunity to take a round off after he had him hurt to recover and get his confidence back, get his feet underneath him, and then close the show. Andy Ruiz didn't allow that. 2 different things. You understand? But Paulie Malignaggi is saying that styles make fights. And Anthony Joshua style, well, Andy Ruiz style is all wrong for Anthony Joshua, should I say. Right? And so Paulie Malignaggi is saying that it doesn't matter what Anthony Joshua does because Just like Joshua took the fight on short notice, Ruiz took the fight on short notice. Now, Paulie Malignaggi is at the mindset of, when people say Ruiz didn't have a full camp, he said, well, Ruiz just came off of a fight. So he didn't have time in between the Joshua fight and his last fight to completely get out of shape. So you can't say that he wasn't in shape, because he was in camp prior to that. He just had a fight not too long before that fight took place. So he's saying that, you know, Ruiz was physically still in shape. But his body was taking abuse in that fight. So, you know, physically, did he recover? Now he's going to have a full-blown Andy Ruiz with a true training camp and a healed body. So I understand what Paulie Malignaggi is saying, that, you know, we're going to see a better version of Anthony Joshua, but you're going to see a better version of Andy Ruiz. An even better version. So he said he was very vanilla in the first fight. He will be able to go in his bag of tricks if need be. He said that he believes that Anthony Joshua's being better is going to force us to see a better version of Andy Ruiz in the rematch. Ultimately, Paulie Malignaggi is saying that styles make fights, and Andy Ruiz Jr. style is all wrong for Anthony Joshua, and Anthony Joshua will be coming up short December 7th in Saudi Arabia. So the press conference kicks off this week. Can't wait, man. You know, this is exciting, man. The sport of boxing is at an all-time high. If you're not in love with the sport of boxing right now, you're just not in love with the sport of boxing ever. But that's all I got for y'all, man. Y'all already know what it is. This your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. You haven't subscribed? Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blood Sports TV, all one word. Y'all already know what it is. Shouts out to the entire LDBC. Shouts out to New Media. Shouts out to Black Media Road. Make sure you like and share this video. That's all I got for y'all. Paulie, the Magic Man Malignaggi, says anything Anthony Joshua steps up his game, Andy Ruiz is just going to step up his game even more. That's all I got for y'all, man. Peace.